Hello again, it's Alan Macon, the local history tutor from Knowsley Face, with a continuing series of short videos on the local history of Knowsley and Liverpool. Today's short video is entitled Liverpool Cathedrals. We'll look at the history behind Liverpool Anglican Cathedral and Liverpool's Catholic Cathedral. We'll look at various sketches and photographs, original photographs taken over a 100-year period, to look at the development of these buildings, the origins of these buildings, and how eventually they were built in the 20th century and are Liverpool's two greatest historical buildings. I'd also like to mention, if anyone's interested in family history or genealogy, Knowsley Face and Knowsley Recovery will be running a free 8-week family history course in Zoom sessions for over 8 weeks. If you'd like further details, and please enrol, go to the Knowsley Face website for further details about enrolment on this free course. So I'd like to start off by looking at the history of the Anglican Cathedral, which can take us back to the late Victorian period into the 20th century. So firstly, I'd like to look at a couple of sketch and a photograph of the site which had become the Anglican Cathedral in central Liverpool. So firstly, I'd like you to have a look at the origins of the Anglican Cathedral, which can be traced to St James's Cemetery. This is St James's Cemetery. The house there was known as the Minister's House. This is now known as the site of the Anglican Cathedral, which took 74 years to build. In the background is Gambier Terrace, and in the foreground is St James's Cemetery. You can see the catacombs, and some 60,000 people were buried there. The last people to be buried there was in the 1930s. If we zoom out again, the bottom photograph shows us in the early 1900s, the site of what will become the Anglican Cathedral. That building in the background is the oratory, still there today, Greek-style building. And that's the Minister's House you saw before, which is knocked down to make way for the Anglican Cathedral. So if we refer to the history behind the Anglican Cathedral, so Liverpool's Anglican Cathedral is the largest cathedral in Britain and the 8th largest church in the world. The cathedral is based on a design by a gentleman called Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, and was constructed between 1904 and 1978, so 74 years it took to build. This is Mr. Scott himself, Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, brilliant sort of genius. He was the 3rd generation of architects. There's a photograph of him. So the foundation stone of the Anglican Cathedral was laid back in 1904, the Edwardian period, and the ceremony was performed by King Edward VII. Giles Gilbert Scott was a Catholic, contentious decision at the time, and was only 22, just out of university, when he won the design competition. If you move on again, you've got a couple of photographs. First photograph is the laying of the foundation stone back in 1904. All the great and the good was there, royalty, Lord Mayor, anyone appeared, and a huge foundation stone. And you can still see the foundation stone in the middle of the cathedral. The next photograph is the masons at work. The mason's yard, the 1930s. Hundreds of masons in different trades were employed, you can imagine, in building a cathedral over 74 years to complete. Nextly, continue the history of the cathedral. At one time, the building workforce numbered in the hundreds. Masons, carpenters, sculptors, and many other trades vied to complete the job that took over 74 years to complete, and was interrupted by the First and the Second World Wars. There's a lovely coloured photograph of the cathedral itself, the altar, known as the Last Supper, the high altar, the so-called the Last Supper high altar. In 1931, Scott asked a gentleman, Edward Carter Preston, born in Liverpool, to produce a series of sculptures for Liverpool Cathedral. The project took over 30 years to complete and concluded 50 sculptures, 10 memorials and several reliefs to make it one of the greatest cathedrals in the world. The next cathedral is the famous Catholic cathedral, the Metropolitan Cathedral, central Liverpool, one either end of Hope Street in central Liverpool. And I'll start off at looking at an aerial photograph of the site of what become the Catholic Cathedral, which was formerly one of Liverpool's workhouses. So there's the site, now the site of the Catholic Cathedral, this former site of, as it says, Liverpool Workhouse, site of the Catholic Cathedral. This photograph is an aerial photograph taken in the 1920s. The site from 1771 to 1928 had been the site of Liverpool's biggest workhouse. By 1900, there were over 4,000 inmates in the workhouse, and the foundation for the new Catholic Cathedral was laid in 1933. The Catholic authorities entrusted a gentleman by the name of Edward Welby back in 1853 to the mid-Victorian period. This idea came up to build the cathedral well before the 20th century, to build Liverpool's first Catholic cathedral. It was to be dominated by a massive central steeple, but was never completed. You would have to wait many decades for that to come to fruition. And these are Welby's original drawings. Edward Welby Pugin, Mr. Pugin, original design in 1853 in the Everton area, but never came to fruition. Then we move on to the Catholic authorities, then entrusted a gentleman by the name of Sir Edward Lutyens with the job of designing the new cathedral. And this is the redesign for this, I call the second cathedral, which again was too expensive and never came to fruition. This is a scale model. It's to be found in the Liverpool Museum by the Pier Head. If we move on again, I just want to talk about the actual building of the new cathedral. So the original plan for the 20th century first cathedral never quite came to fruition. The foundation stone was laid in 1933, but due to costs in the Second World War, only the crypt was ever built, which is used by Liverpool University. So you can see, eventually they decided after the war, in the 1950s, 60s, to design a very much ultra-modern cathedral, controversial at the time. And this was a photograph from 1967. So Frederick Gibbard's design was chosen, was opened in May 1967. The people of Liverpool, as they often do, gave it a nickname, and now it's universally known as Paddy's Wigwam. Lastly, I'd just like to look at some coloured photographs of the interior of the Catholic Cathedral. So you can see this is the crypt underneath the building with its vaults. One of the rooms is used as an altar. The Liverpool University students take exams in this building, and this is the cathedral on a beautiful bright day. So it's a very modern building compared to the Anglican Gothic style building. So lastly, I'd just like to say, as always, want to leave any comments, please do. Please stay tuned to Knowsley Face and Knowsley Face Recovery for any tips on mental health and well-being. And as I've just mentioned, anyone's interested in family history, genealogy, we're starting a new free course, 8-week course on Zoom. And if you wish to join this course, you need to enrol and get the further details from Knowsley Face Family Adult Learning website. Let's go to Knowsley Face website for further details on a new course. Thank you.